Hello and welcome back to Time Under Tension. My name is Olivia Gravengard. I am a certified health coach, functional nutritional counselor, retired bodybuilder, and overall just someone who loves learning about health and wellness from both the physical and spiritual aspects. This week, I've been thinking a lot about the weight of the scale, so to speak. As a health coach, I'm often using the scale with people to measure some parameter that quantifies physical progress. However, the relationship with the scale, both personally and professionally as a coach, is complicated. If you don't know much about my story, when I was in high school, I developed anorexia and struggled with that for years and eventually found bodybuilding, which was a way to implement some structure and to look to a coach for guidance in regards to nutrition and to have a goal outside of simply trying to wither away in this life. However, the scale became a challenging relationship throughout that time. For a long time, the scale was something that indicated a lack of worth. The relationship I saw others in my life have with the scale throughout childhood was usually fairly negative. It was a bated breath moment of stepping on the scale and hoping that it reflected almost a measure of worth. If it had dropped, there was a celebration. If it had gone up, there was frustration. If it had maintained, there was kind of a mixed response of disappointment, but also relief. And all of those emotions, just kind of seeing that in my own life and watching other people weigh and developing a sense of meaning for the scale began to bleed into mine as well. And eventually it was an easy way for me as a young adult with a not quite developed brain to quantify my worth, to think if my weight is under a certain number, that is a measure of my worthiness, of my goodness, of my discipline, kind of this surface level measurement of these underlying character traits. And if it was high, I could assume that I was lazy, undisciplined, that I was doomed to be overweight in my mind. So there was a lot of emotion tied into it. And then when I started struggling with anorexia, it became this endless game of just trying to get the scale to go down, no matter what that meant, no matter what food looked like for that day, no matter how much activity that required. And it just became, again, this endless chase. When I use the scale with clients, which I often do, I very, very frequently meet a lot of resistance to weighing every day. And the common frustration or complaint that I receive is that if I don't see the scale move, I'm going to feel discouraged and feel like I'm not making progress. And I've wrestled with this as a coach because I don't want anyone to be so distracted by the scale weight that they struggle to remain committed to the journey, that they struggle to maintain belief that they can and are making progress. And to have one little number truly derail that and take the bottom out from their sense of self-worth and their motivation, it's not worth it. However, one thing that I think carries over into every area of life when it comes to facing fears is that the only way to overcome a fear, in most cases, is to face it. And the only way to face it is to actually come to terms with it and take your power back from that thing. When I started working with a coach, weighing became part of the process. And that actually became a very positive thing because over time, weighing or the scale became a bit desensitized. I was weighing every single day, so it just became something I woke up, dragged myself out of bed, got on the scale, jotted down the number, and moved on with my day. And over time, it began to lose a lot of meaning because it was something that was just part of my daily routine. And because I had enough data over a certain amount of time to start to notice the trend and notice, oh, yeah, if I eat a late meal, I'm up a few pounds. If I'm dehydrated, I might drop a few pounds. If I cut carbs back, I'm definitely going to drop a few pounds. If I'm really stressed out and I'm at this point in my menstrual cycle, my weight's going to go up several pounds. But because I could see that trend over time and those fluctuations, I got a clearer view of that without feeling so emotionally dysregulated by seeing that number fluctuate so consistently, especially as females. And I think that can be really challenging, is that we have those bigger fluctuations most of the time because our sensitivity to changes in water weight and our hormonal cycles are a bit more complicated. So when it comes to weighing, if it's something that is disempowering to you, and yet you are on a journey to learn more about your body, whether that's learning more about your body to improve your health or in order to achieve some physique goal, which I do truly believe can go hand in hand as long as it's done mindfully and with the proper guidance, having the ability to use a tool like the scale, or even more ideally, if you had some kind of body scanner that incorporated like body mass, like skeletal muscle mass, water weight, where you could really break it down even further, it just gives you more data to go off of. But the key is to start to desensitize yourself to this heavy meaning that we apply to scale weight and understand that the number is relatively arbitrary. I tend to weigh a lot more than my peers, despite my size not necessarily being much larger. And I've had to wrestle my own demons with that and know, okay, I'm always going to be like a little bit higher than I hoped. And when it came to kind of dealing with that in jujitsu, recognizing like, oh, I'm going to be in a higher weight class than I would generally like to be, but for me, this is healthy. And that's another divide that comes in the process as well, is noting that this is not about chasing a number. This is about gathering data so you can learn more about your body. When we change the meaning for something, we also have another approach to diffusing the fear that comes with that thing. When the scale holds the weight of our worth as a human, it holds so much power over us that even stepping on it can be incredibly daunting because we could instantly be overcome by a sense of shame, frustration, worry. All of those things can take us over because we're tying our sense of worth into what that number says. And whether or not it has changed can massively impact our self perception. But when you start to desensitize yourself by weighing and seeing the trend, just as if you are tracking, this is how many hours that I slept, this is how many steps I got for the day. You're just adding one more data point to your tracker each day. And you just, every time you step on the scale, you remind yourself, like, this is just my relation to gravity. Like, really desensitize yourself to it. There's going to be a period of adjustment where if you have placed a lot of meaning on the scale, being able to pull yourself into this state of neutrality with it will take some time. It's going to take a repatterning of the relationship, but it is very possible. And I would say that it's the most empowering way to approach the scale while still being able to use it as a tool in your journey. It can be helpful because you might see how your trends progress throughout a month in your monthly cycle. You might see, oh, after I train leg day, I hold pounds of water. My body's a little bit more inflamed, which can be informative and kind of inform the way that you invest in your recovery or where you plan your rest days. You might notice, wow, when I eat gluten, my weight just skyrockets. Like, I'm definitely more inflamed and I just feel like I hold on to this water weight and I'm feeling puffier. So you just get another data point to help shape the full picture of what's going on in your body. But again, it's just reminding yourself, Just a data point, just a data point. Like, this isn't a measure of my worth. I'm not giving it my power. And if I have in the past, my ability to now face it and develop this sense of neutrality and power over the scale is actually going to be healing in the journey so that it no longer is something that I'm fearful of. Now, this process and whether or not this is right for you is completely dependent on your personal journey, your relationship with your body, your relationship with eating, and whether or not you've had a history of disordered eating, and your goals. If your goal is to simply, I want to feel the best that I possibly can in my body, it may not be worth it to use it as a data point. If your goal is more along the lines of wanting to change your body composition over time, ideally, as with my approach, in tandem with loving your body and nourishing it and giving it everything that it needs so that it can also meet you and serve your goals, then using the scale as a tool can be helpful. But you have to decide, use discernment and wisdom and objectivity, and decide if it's something that's going to be beneficial for your journey or if it's only going to cause more stress. And for some people, it just causes more stress, and you got to be real with yourself. And that's not a sign of weakness. It's just understanding that there's probably been a time in your life where you gave the scale a lot of power. And if it's extremely triggering, it may not be worth it at this point in your journey or at all to use it as a tool. Maybe we can look at things like measurements. Maybe we can do a DEXA scan a little bit more inconsistently, but at least at some points in your journey to help kind of measure that progress. But everyone's different, and it's really important that you learn what's right for you. But I think this is an important conversation because it is something that comes up a lot in the health and wellness field. And as a coach, I'm running into this a lot with my clients. And I would just encourage you, if you feel like there's anything in your life that inspires that sense of fear and worry, and you immediately fear what it could mean for you if you face it. Face it, because until you face it, you will not dissolve the fear. But as soon as you do, you'll start to chip away at it and recognize what's lying underneath. If you're afraid of what the scale will say, then it's, a pretty good bet that you are putting so much weight in your body composition or your physique that it determines the quality of your life, that it determines your worth. And that's not the goal. That's not the goal. It's not going to lead to an abundant life. And it's not going to allow you to make decisions out of a sense of what allows me to feel best in my body, what helps me nourish my body, how can I best support my body so that it supports me in the pursuits that are important to me. How can I create this collaborative, cohesive relationship between my mind and body, which we often separate, but which are so intertwined? And if you find that something like the scale is pulling you away from that cohesion, it's important to decide how much of a role you want it to play in your daily process. But if you do have fear around the scale, trying out at least a period of time where you really commit to just weighing daily and starting to diffuse that meaning from it, I find can be extremely re-empowering, because you start to take your meaning back from the scale and start to notice, oh, even though my weight went up 2 pounds this morning, look at all these things I did today. I showed up for this person. I was really mindful with my nutrition. Even though the scale went up, I didn't restrict. I made sure to nourish my body. I had a really great workout today. I'm feeling very strong in the gym. And you start to create this fuller picture of what health means to you, where health is no longer a direct relation to your scale weight. And through that process, you take your power back from it. And now you have the ability to use it as an informative tool without it having anything to do with your self-worth or self-perception. So I would encourage you, as with anything, this is just a conversation on scale weight, but there are so many things in our life that can start to gain power over us, because at a certain point of our life where perhaps we were a little bit looking at the world a little bit more simply, or we were grasping for a sense of control, or we stole the meaning that someone else was applying to something into our own lives, we start to lose our power to things, and then we fear them, and so we avoid. But when we truly face them and come back and say, no, I'm going to change the meaning of this thing, that can be a super empowering process. That doesn't apply to everything. I think it's very important to say that in cases of addiction where stepping away completely from the substance, removing it from your life is absolutely the right choice. That is a very important decision. And for many people, that is absolutely necessary. In cases of addiction, avoiding the substance is necessary. However, when it's something not addiction related, but maybe related more to something that you're giving power over your sense of self-worth, I would encourage you to incorporate it into your routine enough to be able to truly face it, to dissolve the fear, and to reframe the meaning of that thing in your life. So you can take back your power and truly start to use the tools that you have available without them holding power over you. Thank you guys so much for watching and or listening. If the scale is something that you've wrestled with, I'd love to hear your story with it and how you've come to a place of balance in this journey with your health and maybe using it as a tool or maybe not. What is your story? And you can comment below, email me, or message me directly on Instagram. As always, you can watch this on YouTube. You can listen on Spotify, Apple, but please remember to like, subscribe, comment, share. Thank you guys so much for supporting, and I will catch you next time on Time Under Tension.